Welcome back. I'm Kristen Eargle at Small College Conversations. I am with Dan Schumacher, Northland College's Executive Director. Dan, thanks for being a part of us today.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it very much.
I want to hear all about your story. You've been an athletic director at many universities and have a lot of experience to share with us. And you guys have been through a lot the last year, broadly speaking. How did the uncertainty of the college kind of impact rather the athletic department?
Oh, we had a major effect on it from everything from retention, not only the retention of current student athletes, um, but you have a coaching staff that fled because they were worried they weren't going to have a job. You had the recruiting classes that you had all set up, uh, turned to 180 and went somewhere else. So it was a very difficult time because of the uncertainty. The financial exigency that we had to file for to buy us some more time so we can wrap up a quick capital campaign. Also, we cut curriculum, which took away a lot of majors for a lot of student athletes. So that was very tough because then, at our level, we got to think academics first, of course, or at any level, but academics is a forefront for Division III. So it was very difficult on everybody. Most of the hardest part was the wait.
Mhm.
So you started with an announcement March 10th, and you didn't have resolved till say end of May, early June.
Wow.
So you trying to keep everything. I mean, I lost every men's soccer player except for one. I lost almost every softball player, almost every women's soccer player. We didn't even sponsor. We sponsor women's soccer right now, but we didn't have enough players. So we sat out this year in the UMAC in our conference, but we'll be back. Hired a new coach, changed my strategy even before the announcement on how we were going to strategically rebuild the place, um, both from an enrollment standpoint and then also a stability standpoint. It was a revolving door even before the announcement of young coaches come here, get a little experience, and then they go off somewhere else. I mean, I know that's the name of the game to advance. It is, but it's hard to create anything if there's a new head coach every year. So I really changed the strategy on rehiring. Almost every rehire we have, and I know probably talk about it later on in the conversation, but my strategy was to either hire local, regionally, an alumnus, ties to Ashland, Wisconsin, or the region itself. And if you look down all the new hires in the last 8 months, they at least have ties to the area. And you go right. We have alumni that have come back to become head coaches that have coached other places. I feel that's the best way to create stability, so that we can build upon the roster sizes, which in the end supports the enrollment management piece.
Dan, I appreciate your openness and all this. You said something. Obviously, we are going to talk about coaching, hiring, which is an incredible way to the perspective of it. I want to hear more about that. But you mentioned something that really struck a chord with me, which is the fundraising piece of it.
Yep.
And we talked the college obviously working towards a significant fundraising goal, and reducing expenses. What did the outpouring of support mean as you navigated that process from March to May to where you are right now?
Well, one thing that came out of it is that you really got to see the true community, not just campus community, but community itself in Ashland, Wisconsin, and how important the institution that's been here 150 years, how important the institution still is to the community. Maybe you can even go down the weeds and say, well, it's about employment. People will lose jobs, affects the economy, the tax base. But they truly, if you walk around town, 1 out of 2 people have graduated from this institution that still live here. So that's a testament to the school itself. I mean, we are in a beautiful area right on Lake Superior, the south shores of Lake Superior. The Apostle Islands are here. It's a huge tourist place. So it is a beautiful place to go to school, and the community takes a lot of pride in it. So that was a big thing that I took away as I was evaluating things myself.
Mm.
Do I want to move on myself, go back to retirement? Because I retired from UW Eau Claire. And but no, I took a liking to it, and I'm hell bent on making things right, and to a certain extent save the school.
Yeah. Without question. All right, talk me through some of this operational model you have,
Mhm.
sponsorship. How does that play into it?
Well, like I said, the community, the fundraising efforts that we did do, the board of trustees that stepped up and really made sure that we're going to stay open for the next 5 years. Now it's our job, both admissions and athletics, to backfill everything to get this enrollment back to, we were at 285 students when the dust settled. And we lost, 200 and some students. So we went from 225 athletes to 150. So I've got some athletes that are playing dual sports just so we can field a team. And we want to get back to that where we're back at that 250 to 275 mark. That maximizes all the rosters. And hopefully there'll be no dual sport athletes anymore because that's just not healthy in general. I think mentally wise on the student athlete to put that on them is hard. It becomes very difficult time management skills when you all of a sudden you come to college, you think you're going to play one sport, and we got a women's basketball team that's asking two volleyball players because they're 6 foot to come out and play basketball. So it's been a strain, but we are slowly recovering and getting back to where we're going to maximize everything. And athletics is a huge piece of moving forward because we have great retention rates. When we do have the full rosters and we do have athletics and none of this was happening, our retention rates were out of this world, as well as graduation rates. So we're a good bet. So on top of trying to recover, we're also going to be looking at sport expansion, which I've been doing my entire career. I've expanded sports. So that was one of the reasons why they brought me on, because of that expertise. And I think I'll put a full long-time strategic plan in the spring. Right now, I'm just micromanaging and helping sport by sport to find a way to recover, recruit, build schedules for next year around a lower budget, things like that. So a lot of micromanaging right now. What I call coaching the coaches.
Mm, yeah. It's probably kind of exhausting work a little bit. Is this whole section of your life maybe? I mean, you've been through a lot with different, jobs. You've seen a lot. You have a lot of experience. Is this one of the hardest sections of your life, do you think? Or is this, hey, you've dealt with things like this before?
I would say it's up there. It really is. But the people that I'm working for, the president that I work for, Chad Dayton, he's been wonderful to work with. It's been rewarding to get to know this community. Would I say it's the toughest situation? I would say I've never seen something so hard on student athletes before, as well as coaches. But coaches, they become transactional and they move on, as you probably know, of a coaching world. But I had some really difficult times at Lewis University. I took them over while they were on NCAA probation. They won a Division I national championship in men's volleyball, but it got taken away because of ineligible players. And trying to rebuild something like that, and the whole department was on probation with the NCAA. That was a very difficult time to recruit to because you couldn't play for championships or anything, no postseason. And in the end, 5 years later, we won the All Sports Trophy. So those strategies. I mean, there's been difficult situations in my career, but this one, I'm an older guy now, so I don't have any. I've got a lot of gray, white hair here. But this has been a very rewarding, at the same time challenging, and it's taken everything that I've known and try to figure out how this is going to work and how I can rebuild it. But it's been tough, but not the toughest.
There are other ADs that are either have gone through what you're going through or about to go through it, obviously. What advice would you give them? What you have encountered, what you have focused on in the last couple of months. You talked about coaching coaches and obviously fundraising. Where do you start if you're about to go through something like this?
I'll tell you what I learned is patience. And you can't look too far ahead in this situation. You are literally day to day, and you try to fix things day to day. And hopefully all those fixes at the end build up to something, a good result, a positive result. So patience is a huge piece in something like this, because if you show panic as the leader, you show you're uncertain, that's going to creep into the rest of the department. and the coaches will talk, and the athletes will talk. And my job is to keep everybody calm and to assure them that there is a plan, that I'm gonna help lead them the best they could possibly be led, and we'll get through this. You just have to have some trust and patience.
You talked about sports sponsorship and adding sports, and you've had a lot of experience doing that. What things are you evaluating now? Basically, what is your process that you go about going, this one could fit here? How do you evaluate that?
Well, before the announcement, we had plans and drawings. We got prices, a number on an addition onto our athletic building that would include a wrestling room. We would then turn to sponsor men's and women's wrestling, which is, women's wrestling is becoming a big thing in the state of Wisconsin. Heck, the national champion for UW Eau Claire, a kid that used to compete for me, is an Ashland kid and won the national championship. So wrestling's a big deal in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois. So that seems to be a sport, with women's wrestling being probably the fastest growing female sport right now in the country, that those make sense. And then we would add on offices and locker rooms for both the men's and women wrestling, but then a major locker room to restart football and bring football back, as I've done before at another school. So they wanted to restart football before COVID. They built there's a brand new stadium here. It's probably one of the nicer ones you could have in Division III. And so we're going to support that, but we got to continue to fundraise and find the people. And I know there's some board members that are former football players. They dropped the program in 78. But that's a big piece of enrollment. And when you show the numbers from a Division III, it's a profit center and it's an enrollment piece. And most Division III is all profit because there's no scholarships involved, and it's minimally financed too. So that's the way we're looking at it, as another step. We're first going to get the house in order first, and as we go into next fall, then we start to plan things out and how we can grow the enrollment using athletics as the vehicle. No different than at Eau Claire. I took over Eau Claire in 2012. 543 athletes, 21 sports. Left there was 25 sports and 903 athletes. So you double it, and even at a state school of that size, enrollment is still important, especially at the Division III level. You can't emphasize it enough.
You talked about the student athletes, it being very hard on them. How were you able to support them during this time? And then going forward, what are your plans there?
I started doing town hall meetings with all the athletes, like an open session, once every couple of weeks. Not all the athletes showed up, but a good amount of them. This was before the announcement. And then after the announcement, I was meeting with the teams individually once a week, just trying to figure out, to get a feel where you're going. Are you leaving? Are you staying? This is what we're doing behind the scenes, trying to instill some confidence that, hey, stick it out with us till the end here. Don't make that, you're going to have plenty of time to be able to transfer, but just give us that little bit of time. I think those town hall meetings allowed us to save a lot of relationships and saved enrollment to a certain extent. And I will continue to do that as I've been doing this fall, meeting with each individual team, weekly meetings with the head coaches, constant communication, and be an open book about it. Because as soon as you get caught not being transparent, all trust goes out the window. And this is not a time to lose trust. You need to gain it.
Wow, well stated. You talked about coaching changes and hiring coaches. Obviously, that characteristic built around trust and the leaders that you're bringing in. You talked about connection to the community. How has that been beneficial to you to make sure they have a tie?
Well, it's been interesting, but we've been able to do it. I mean, I hired a men's hockey coach. He played hockey here. He's an alumnus. Cole Schreiner, our men's basketball coach, is an Ashland native, but he's coached at UW, Stout, other Division III schools. His wife got a job at the hospital, so they moved back up here. I had an opportunity to take him. He was at a junior college down the road. I go right down the line. Cal, our baseball coach, is a Superior native, was at Duluth East High School for many years. Our golf coach is a retired superintendent of schools from locally here and is an avid golfer and golf coach. Nick Nemec, our cross country coach, is a native of Ashland. Family owns a business here. I mean, it goes right down the line, the connections right back. Lee Dennis is an alumnus from men's soccer. He was hired from assistant coach to head coach. It just goes right down the line right now, what I've been trying to do to build, because then right now, everywhere I go in town, they're like, hey, you hired Nick Nemec. I know that family. So the community is now starting to take notice of all these now inroads community-wise. Instead of hiring a golf coach from Florida that's going to come up here and experience 250 inches of snow, that ain't going to work. It's not going to work. So finding people that are used to the region, the weather, that have ties in some way to the region, that's the new strategy. And it's going to work out, I think, because where are they going to go? Once they Shane Buckley, who's an alumnus, once he got it, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to let down his fellow alumni, things like that. Or a Nick Nemec, who's a hometown hero, ran cross country at UW Superior, was an All-American runner. He's well known in the community. He teaches at the high school. He's our cross country coach. I mean, these are things that I know that create stability so that we can have a recruiting class over a recruiting class over another recruiting class. And they know that coach is going to be there.
Wow. I love how you're setting the vision. What couple of things are you doing when you go, okay, there's a refocused model right now. Do you have some strategic plans that the next 5 years, what this looks like, and kind of a methodology of how you're approaching some of this?
I'm going to start to do a real strategic plan looking forward, not till maybe the end of next spring. I want to get us in a good place, know where we're at, get a feel of where we're at from a recruiting standpoint for incoming class. And then from there, once I know that we're going to get there and we're going to meet the enrollment goals of the existing rosters, then we can start to talk about long-term. As I've been telling people, I said, we got to get the quantity and then we can work the quality. And that's really what we're going to do. We're going to work the quantity to fill those spots. And then from there, we start to build and going, okay, well, this kid might not work out, but I think I got a kid that's a little bit better than him. And you're always trying to out-recruit your last recruiting class anyways. So we're just going to go that route, and I'm going to do everything I can to help the coaches. The rule number one for coaches, if they have a recruit on campus and I'm on campus and their parents are here, they got to come to my office and meet with me. And we go over our goals. There's only 3 things that we stand by. We're going to graduate, we're going to compete for championships, and we're going to be a good person in the community. We stick by those 3 things. That's been my motto from Division I all the way down. If we do those things and keep our eye on the prize on those 3 goals, we will become successful.
Talk to your fellow 80s out there, or someone who's aspiring to be an athletic director, maybe a young professional. Mm-hmm. What should they focus on? What makes a successful director of athletics?
Everybody has a different path. I mean, I've got a lot of guys in the business that I'm really good friends with, and we all have different paths. I was in the private sector before anything. I was a banker, investment banker. I have a business degree, got an MBA, got an EDD, all that kind of other necessary degrees. But I was in private sector, and it took the president of my alma mater, because I was involved with the Booster Club and trying to fundraise, to make that switch to higher ed, because he knew that it was becoming the business of sports. It's not the old days of the old football coach or the old basketball coach or whatever, hanging up the whistle and stepping into the AD position is not the business nowadays. And it wasn't 25 years ago. So I was lucky enough to have a college president and a close colleague, coach me on how I can get to be an athletic director in advance. And it came down to more education. But there's so many paths. I mean, I tell kids all the time, the best, you want to go at the highest level, get a graduate assistant position. Graduate from this college and search online for GA positions at Division I schools or even at Division II schools that sponsor GA programs. So that's a great foot in the door. My path is different than a lot. A lot of coaches are in administration because they made that leap 25 years ago. But the business now is the business of sports. And that's why you see so many business-minded people running athletic departments. So there's a different path for everybody.
Yeah. How have you tried to build culture at the different universities you've been at, and especially right now? That's a buzzword, isn't it?
That's a
kind of
long
big
question.
loaded question.
Every school is different.
Hard to answer, right?
Yeah. Every school is different that I've led. Talking about culture and I'm from the south, born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Okay, so I have a little bit of street in me, but it's worn off over the years. But when I left Lewis to go to Chicago State University, that was my first D1 AD job. I was the only Caucasian in administration. It's a PBI, what they call predominantly black institution. It's not an HBCU, but it's the second category. So I was getting to learn, even though I'm from that neighborhood where that school is, there was still cultural. I still need to learn the cultural differences to try to lead in that atmosphere with massively diverse population. That was a challenge on me to really challenge myself, how good a leader I can be. And so I learned really a lot of times in that area to shut up and listen. Just listen, because you don't know what you don't know, which is the name of my book that I've been writing. That is the name of my book. You don't know what you don't know, So, and so there's been difficult, but in the end, I've always been able to move the culture to a positive way. I've created winning cultures. I've won, 8 national championships at Eau Claire. I've won them at Lewis. I've, won them at Winona State basketball championships. So it just takes time. But I really believe that you can get more out of people if you truly leave your emotions on your sleeve, and you are who you are. I'm not a politician. I would be the worst politician because I'm too direct and too direct, And so I learned to become a little bit more political when I have to do the external part of my job, but internally to coaches, to student athletes, you need to be open, honest. My door's always open in my office to come in and sit down and talk. And then I listen again. It comes back to listening. And if you listen, you can learn a lot from the student athletes and the coaches, and it helps you decide what you're going to prioritize to support them. So
that's so well stated. This question, because of your experience, I couldn't wait to ask you this question. It's the final question for you. What national topic or topics do you see trending right now that could impact Division III? And the reason I'm so excited because you have so much experience to pull from. You've seen things trend over the years.
I'm worried about the NCAA itself. So I'm going to give you a little bit what's in my book. Okay. So in 2012, Pat Hayden was the AD at USC. He's a group of basically Power 5 ADs called an all AD meeting, all Division I ADs, out to Santa Monica, California, to stay at the Piedmont Hotel for 3 days of talks, strategic planning, and this is still this crazy to me that it actually has gone through everything that they said. So at the end of the meetings, I'm not going to name names on the ADs that were directing us. They said, if you want to know where the future's really going in candid conversation, go down these stairs down to the basement. So 200 and some ADs were sitting on card table chairs in a basement of the Piedmont Hotel when a couple of the Power 5 ADs laid out and warned us lower level Division I's that conference realignment is about to start. So in 2012, this started by conference realignment. And within conference realignment, you see all the players switch. You go from a Power 5 down to a Power 4. And why do I say, to answer your first part of the beginning question, the NCAA itself? Because if the Power 4 leave the NCAA, how are we going to afford things? I mean, our dues will go up $200,000 as a Division III school, just to keep supporting an NCAA model. So what started in 2012 is just everybody starting to position themselves to get in a position to be part of that Power 4 or Power Six, which will turn into, because there'll be basketball only conferences, super conferences. Like I was surprised Gonzaga went to the Big 12. I mean, I'm surprised they let him in because they don't have football. So it started in 2012 in the basement of the Piedmont Hotel, and all of everything that they said, it's been followed through on, and then some. And that's what makes me worry about the end game here with the NCAA.
What could Division III do?
We get peanuts as it is. I think the overall budget, because of people don't realize that the Power Four, all that bowl money, all that, the football playoff, that's not part of the NCAA. That's a private entity. The only thing the NCAA creates revenue on is the TV contract for the basketball tournament. And we get, what, 2.9% of that budget, the profits from it, or Division III gets, or Division II gets 4.8% or 5%. So these may sound like small percentages, but it does add up when it's a $1 billion business. So I just don't know if the resources are going to be there to support an NCAA, a governing board, or what that's going to look like in the future if those schools do truly move on to their own and create their own business model. They've been changing the rules. You've got the transfer portal. You got NIL. I mean, it is just, to say that you could pay an athlete now, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I don't know how the sports are going to survive. I really don't, especially with D2 and D3. You're going to see a lot of lower level D1s, like a Chicago State, have to go down to D2, because there'll be no conference for them. I mean, the Horizon League and some of these Division I basketball leagues, they're all low-level mid-majors, and they don't have the resources that Oklahoma has, or Michigan has, or Notre Dame. So it's going to be interesting times as this thing evolves, and then you throw in Congress with it, the NCAA issues with the government. I just don't know where it's going to go and where the NCAA will land in the end.
I want to give the opportunity to end on a positive note. You obviously said earlier that you considered at some point going, hey, I was in retirement. This is exhausting. This is tough work. But what made you come back ultimately? What made you have a passion to do this every single day?
Well, I was retired for a couple of months, and then, I got phone calls from a lot of people from the Parker Associates and all the search firms and stuff. But I knew somebody that was on this board, and I knew the area, and it was where I live in Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls still. My home is back there. I have a place up here now. It's only a 2-hour ride. So it allowed me to come up here. I sat with the president and the chairman of the board for about 4 hours, and had no idea any of this was going to happen, of course. This is before any of the announcements or anything. But the idea is that I was coming in to start sports, because that's what I've done everywhere, including D1. I started soccer's and all kinds of stuff. So, but once I got done talking to the gentleman and seeing the campus and seeing a chance to maybe put a little cherry on top of the career and help the school really in a tough time that everybody's been preparing for the enrollment cliff here in 2025. I know that's what we did at Eau Claire. That's why we started more sports 5 years ago, to combat that problem. See the trees through the forest. And I got attached to it, enjoyed it, gave it a shot, told myself give it 6 months. And now, a year and 3 quarters later, I'm here, and I'm looking at this as a really good professional challenge. And the school's a beautiful school and a beautiful place. And I love athletics. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I don't know anything else. And so, being 59 years old, too young to retire probably, but I just, there's many reasons for retirement. Everybody's got their own reasons. But I was looking to get into consulting and things like that because of my wide range of experiences. But no, I'm here to finish. We lost a lot of people, coaches, professors, administrators, but I'm not a quitter either. And I promised the president before this happened that I would rebuild the athletic department and get the numbers back to help support enrollment. And I'm still here going to do that and going to honor that until I know the job is done.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time today. Continued success, Dan.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.